We always said the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Africa. These are the voices of New Africa. These are the voices of New Africa. Free in the land, and we ain't asking y'all. Welcome everybody to the Voices of New Africa, the show where we educate the uneducated. Let me get this mic muted. The show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I'm your host, Brother Prophecy. Riding with me, I got my comrades, my elders, my soldiers, freedom fighters, all them good things wrapped all in one. We have the one and only Grandmaster Teacher for Dolly, and also my partner who's been down from day one, Comrade Kakai. How everybody doing today, y'all? How y'all doing?
Free the land, free the land, free the land.
I'm doing good as I can under the imperialist system in which we exist.
Definitely, no doubt. Now, earlier in our, let me try to get this right. I'm having some feedback, but earlier we were talking about education, our miseducation, and how that affects and how it shows up in its different ways. And you made a point. You dropped some history on us in the beginning when we were on the radio, and you talked about Liberia, and you talked about how this colony of the United States had miseducated African people, and the results, the negative results that happened because of the miseducation of our people. So kind of, talk about what's kind of the history of Liberia. What was Liberia, and how was this miseducation? What part did miseducation play within that?
Okay, so when we talk about Liberia, the history of Liberia, we first have to talk about when Africans wanted to go back, wanted to leave this so-called continent to go back home. And Paul Cuffey, who was an African who had ships that was transporting people back to West Africa. But the beginnings of Liberia started with the American Colonization Society, which was a racist white Southern political organization who saw an opportunity because to send Africans back because they didn't want these intellectuals mainly to be a part of any kind of struggle against slavery in the United States. So many of these people took the bite at the American Colonization Society and moved to Liberia. And it was called Liberia. Liberia means liberty, liberated, whatever. But James Monroe in 1823, who was president of the United States, slave owner, acquired this land off the coast, on the west coast of Africa, right up under Ghana, the Gold Coast, and Sierra Leone, and so this was made a colony for the United States for Africa who wanted to go back. But the problem is what we were talking about was miseducation. That Africans had been miseducated to the extent that many of them wanted to be missionaries for Christianity or European Christianity, and believe that our people believe what the white supremacists were saying that Africans, were not educated. They were not, they need to be civilized. So these people, like I said, many of them sincerely believed that they were, that they were on a mission to go back to Christianize the African people who were still, settled in that area, what they call Liberia. And so this led to ultimately in the 1970s where Sergeant Samuel Doe pulled a coup and assassinated many of the leaders of the government of Liberia at that time. And I say that because when we say we're going to re-educate the miseducated, we got to understand that's a tremendous task because what they have done is made our people enemies to liberation. Okay, y'all go ahead. Somebody take it over me. Excuse me.
Yeah. So Liberia, and this settlement came. Yeah, so that settlement to not Liberia came at a time where the miseducated and with with being misled thought they were doing our brothers and sisters a favor by coming over there and civilizing them through Christianity. What we do know from those actions, it 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 polarized the brothers and sisters that came from the United States from the brothers and sisters that had never left. It polarized them because they came with the opinion that they were going to do something to help civilize our brothers and sisters and in turn bring Christianity. It's that Christianity, under the auspices of Europeans, brought in capitalism. Capitalism brought in individualism. And individualism led to the hard times that Liberia had. They actually had a civil war between the brothers and sisters that came from the United States and the brothers and sisters that were there. Because we have learned as new Africans now that it's not our place to go over there as neo-colonialists and try to dominate our brothers and sisters. It's our blood responsibility and historical duty to obtain and secure land here in the Western Hemisphere so that we can create our own independent sovereign nation and later on reach out through Pan-Africanism um, out to our other brothers and sisters and help them through. We are colonized by the European descendants of basically England, but throughout Europe, they came over here and became a part of the power structure. And so we are oppressed by the United States, but our brothers in Africa are oppressed by the brothers and sisters of our oppressors, the French in Senegal and Sierra Leone, uh, the British and the French in Cameroon. And we can go on and on and on and on throughout the nation, throughout the continent of Africa. You have different Europeans that have gone in and colonized and exploited our brothers and sisters. We are the catalyst, and that's the danger behind the new Africans here in the United States um, that we pose to the Europeans in control of this nation. Is that if we are the catalyst, if we set the standard of creating our own independent sovereign nation here in the Western Hemisphere, it will be a chain reaction, a snowball effect, a catastrophe that will be evolving for Europeans because we will begin the process of Black people taking over the land in which they inhabit and they will control that land and control the resources. And that one small step of us obtaining our independence here will catapult the change of the whole world from that day forward.
I want to jump in real quick. Um, so when we're talking about Liberia and what happened, basically you're looking at a situation where African people here in the United States have been indoctrinated into the European mind, way of thinking, a colonial mindset. And they took this same colonial mindset over to Africa, and they end up oppressing the indigenous people, the African people who were already over there. Sincerely thinking they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But that's the importance. That's why we say we educate the uneducated and we re-educate the miseducated. Because if you are miseducated with this indoctrination of this white power structure, and you try to lead your own people, then you're only going to lead them into farther oppression, to farther exploitation, because this is what this education teaches us to do, how to be exploiters or to be exploited. And that's not what we're trying to do. That's not the goal and objective. That's not what we're trying. We say we're trying to create a new reality, a better world. We're trying to get rid of a system that is based on the exploitation of man by man. And the example and why we have to study Liberia is when we're engaging in the activity of nationhood, of nation building, then we have to understand clearly that we cannot adopt this same system, the same exploitive, brutal, oppressive system, or we'll get the same thing that happened to our brothers and sisters in Liberia. So, in our Grandmaster Teacher, I hope you are right. I'm glad to see you back. But yeah, you can pick up where you left about.
So when we talk about re-educating the miseducated, the most miseducated
are the intellectual class of our people. But we got to win the intellectual, because we got to have thinkers that are going to direct us in terms of how we're going to be able to achieve the goal of liberation. And so therefore, like when we talk about and when we look at all throughout the world, and where the Europeans have dominated areas and have left so-called independent nations that were former colonial nations, we find we have the same problem. And that is neo-colonialism. And we talked about earlier about Nkrumah, who was overthrown by the CIA, in which he had wrote a book called Neo-Colonialism, which exposed the relationship that the European nations, including the United States, had toward the new African nation states that had developed in the 1950s and the 1960s. And so we see that we do not have control over the resource. The Europeans still have, and the United States capitalists still have control of the resources of Africa throughout. You have 54 so-called states on the continent of Africa itself, and there's not one that is independent from European influence or European domination, even though we have black presidents and prime ministers and all those kind of things. And we have a similar situation here where you have black mayors and black government, and we even had a black president. But we have no control over any area in which we live. Matter of fact, we have been diminished in any holdings that we have, because we used to be many more black farmers, in the state that we're talking about taking over, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana. All of that, the black farmers have been cheated, and the lands have been stolen, and all of those things have happened under the American system of capitalism. That's why we're saying we want to break away and create our own, and have our own self-government and have our own control over our lives. And so their political education is most important, not to talk about, how many empires we used to have, or different little stuff, that in history, and who was the first this and that and all that. No, political education leads us to liberation. It leads us to organizing ourselves. It leads us to agitate for our human rights. It leads us to become part of the world uh, system of people liberating themselves. And we can become a party of the small number of people that are socialists, socialist countries that are being attacked even today by the American Empire and the Europe and NATO, what they call NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which started out with just 5 European nations. Now they have about 30 European nations, basically, that are part of the so-called NATO. We got a few other, that traitor nations like Turkey, and so, they have been allowed to join, and they're betraying their people because the North Atlantic Treaty Organization was for the Europeans coming out of World War II, and they banded together to push against the Soviet Union, which is now called Russia again in history. And so consequently, what we're talking about from our standpoint is we don't want to be on a falling ship, a ship that's sinking. We don't want to be a part of a nation or a system that is about to go under, because it's going to take us under if we keep on thinking that we are part of that, and we want to be a part, and we want to call ourselves African American instead of New Africans or Africans. And so therefore, when the miseducated are not that big majority. We're talking about the uneducated. That's the mass of people. They're uneducated, and we don't have to have a hard job of trying to bring our information to them. But it's the miseducated who are active in organizing our people and confusing our people that we have to begin to understand. We got to re-educate that element that we must win, so that we'll be able to organize the uneducated and the mass of people. And so therefore, all the educational systems that we are under do not teach us to go to liberation, to become liberated. They teach us to want to be a part of the so-called American system or European system or whatever the nature is. Then what we're talking about is winning over the most progressive elements of the so-called intellectual class, that are going to be the ones that are going to help us educate, the uneducated.
One of the most important things, or one of the important things that we have to understand about being miseducated, and one of the most dangerous things when it comes to being miseducated, is being miseducated will have you identifying with a perspective that is against your own interests. It will have you identifying with groups of people and struggles that are actually against your own best interests. And a lot of times that what we see ourselves falling into, we look at this Democrat versus Republican and all of this United States politics, and we start taking sides. We say, "Oh yeah, I'm with the liberals, I'm with the conservatives," and we get wrapped up into all of these things, and none of them really serve the interests of our people. And what they really do is they serve the exploitation of other groups. With a lot of people, a lot of people love Democrats. But we understand what Democrats have really been doing is they have been utilizing Black people in order to gain political power in their struggle. So what you're looking at in the United States, you're actually seeing the fall of power, because no nation lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. And because this particular system, this nation, has been founded on the struggle, the pain, the exploitation, the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors, of our people. It lies at the foundation on our backs, that since we're so connected with this system, once this system falls, it will fall right on top of us. So that's why it is extremely important that we understand that one of our most important responsibilities to our nation, our race. When I say our nation, I'm talking about New African people. I'm talking about African people in America. I'm not talking about the United States of America. I'm talking about New African people. But one of our most important responsibilities should be to become as independent as possible, to detach ourselves from the stranglehold and the chains of oppression of this system. So we're not dependent upon a system that benefits from our exploitation. So once this system falls, we don't fall with it. We have to get that safe space for us. We have to create a safe space for us where we can conduct business, independent, self-governing, without the authority and hegemony over people who exploit us. So therefore, we cannot identify with the colonizers. We cannot identify with the exploiters. So we have to be re-educated, because miseducation, this miseducation system in America teaches you to identify with your oppression. Right now, we can throw terms, and I can guarantee you a lot of people out there will just cringe up. They'll be like, oh no, I didn't really hear about that, because we've been trained and conditioned to go against things that are actually good for us. I'll just mention a couple of them: socialism, communism. A lot of people right now, when I said that, they be like, oh Lord, he's talking about he's talking about enslaving us, dictatorship, because we've been taught in this miseducation school system that these things are bad, these things are evil, these things produce slavery. When the reality is, the current economic system that the United States and really the whole world is under produces slavery. It produces crime. It produces poverty. It produces disease, death, murder, all of these negative things that plague the entire globe, really. And when I'm talking about capitalism. So that brings us to the other thing that I want to talk about, because in order to gain freedom, you said a term earlier. You said political education. It's important that we get politically educated, because that is attached to an action that's going to inform us on what we need to be doing in order to gain real liberation. Because a lot of people get confused because we learn some stuff about our history. We learn some stuff about the lies that have been told in religion. And we think, oh man, I know some stuff. I got knowledge now. I got some knowledge of self, which is a beautiful thing and something we definitely need. But we think that that's all we need. Now we got some knowledge. Now we're free, because we freed our minds. So now we're free. But actually, regardless of how much you know, knowing alone is not going to change your material condition, your physical condition. So that's why we have to have this political education, so we can act and we can bring about and we can create the type of reality that's going to actually make a difference in our lives and our grandchildren's lives. And then under political education, like, freedom is not knowing some stuff. Freedom is not having the respect and love of white people. Freedom is not even having white people love us. That's not what freedom is. Freedom, if you study Sundiata Acoli, freedom is defined as having land, independence, self-determination in an economic system that's not based on the exploitation of man by man. That's what freedom actually is. So when we up there saying we're fighting for freedom, Juneteenth, Freedom Day, no, we didn't get any land. We didn't get any independence. We don't have self-government. And every time that we have fought for these things, and been at arm's reach of these things, that's when the United States government has most viciously attacked us. When you look at Black Wall Street, even though that was a capitalist system, it still had a capitalist structure, but it had a certain level of independence, a certain level of Black people not dependent on the white power structure to survive. They was viciously attacked throughout history. Every time that we have approached true independence, true freedom, which is true freedom, which leads us to true freedom, we have been viciously attacked. And this is where we have to be properly educated, because we'll go through this system and think, oh, hey, man, I can vote for the devil or Satan. I can vote for the lesser of two evils. I can pick my oppressor. Therefore, I'm free now. Because I can do these things. I can go out and I can spend all my money on things that I don't need. That's freedom. But that's not freedom. When the so-called pilgrims came over here, they annihilated 98% of the population in order to gain the land. because they understood that land is the foundation of freedom. If you're not educated on that, then you have been miseducated. You know, and I'm a yield right there. Now, allow anybody else who want to jump in to jump in. Nobody want to jump in.
I mean, I can. You know, it's
I think needs to be said about the position we need to take as a people. And I don't know how many times I can say it. The things that need to be corrected in our community has to be corrected by us. The best way for us to do that without any interference is to start those processes going now, ideologically, but physically it can be done by us focusing on getting control of the land. And we may have to take some steps and measures in controlling our community first, incorporating that into our territory. I'm not sure what areas are going to take control of their community first. We would hope that many of us would begin to start that journey back to the national territory so that we can begin to empower ourselves in our national territory, because there will be people, white people in particular, but people in general, that's going to give us a fight when we start telling them the laws and policies and procedures and our constitution that govern our land that we control. A lot of them going to be reluctant to leave. We may have to do some of the things that Nicaragua did, Venezuela did, Haiti did, even to a certain degree, what was done in South Africa initially when Mandela was released, to start nationalizing businesses that are within our national territory. But those are the things that we'll decide to do as free, independent, liberated people. And we don't care what anyone else thinks. But these are some of the steps and measures we have to do and consider as a people that will help us move forward in developing our nation, creating our nationhood, and calling ourselves a people of a particular territory, the Republic of New Africa, New Africa. I know we're getting close to an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, Grandma, see what you're saying.
Okay, so I think what we're talking about is like organizing our people so that we can free ourselves to the point of where all the other people will be an encouragement to all the other African people in the world and all the other people people who have been oppressed, who are still being oppressed, to make that move, to break away from that capitalist system and create that socialist system, that collectivity, that total collectivity of the people that at one time we had. They try to make it pretend like there's never been any time in which the people had control over their land and the resources and shared those resources. But communalism in Africa, even in what they call the Soviet Union, a small part of Russia, they had communalism, in which they tried to implement their socialist system off of their history of having whatever level of communalism they had in that state that became the Soviet Union. But we know that they didn't get to socialism because socialism cannot be built in one country. Socialism has to be built by a collectivity of people in the world. And so therefore Africa has one of the largest populations in the world, and we'll be feeding into the development of Africa as and gaining control and seizing those resources. There's no way around it, that you got to seize the resources that the Europeans have built up all the capitalist system to continue to oppress and exploit us. So uh, our demand, our reasons are that we know that in America we're going to influence the rest of the Western Hemisphere, which includes Brazil, includes the Caribbean, includes other nations on the continent, and they have been inspired by some of the things that we did in the Pan African movement that was in the 1970s and 1980s. That the world, and then the Black Power movement itself was a liberating movement that became worldwide in its nature. And so New African is going to expand from just being the Africans in the 5 states to being the whole Western Hemisphere, because there are over 150 million Africans in the Western Hemisphere, and they all came the same way we did, through the slave ships and under chattel slavery and all the other systems of exploitation and denial of our identity as a people. And so we got to understand that one of the things that we're talking about in terms of political education is to organize our people. When the Black Panther Party was doing political education, when they had the survival program, and they were feeding the children in the children program, they were educating the children to liberation. In other words, they were taking control. They were saying, take control. We'll take control of our problems that we have in our community. And they organized the elderly to take them to the grocery stores and different things like that, taking control of the community. And then the government decided they were going to, kill off as many as they could under the circumstances. And over 30 Black Panthers alone were killed in a fight where the government, was attacking them because of the programs and stuff that they were putting out. So what we have to do is understand, and we didn't really have the proper understanding that the United States government was our enemy. We know, we who are a part of the New African movement know that the United States government is a major enemy of not only us, but the whole world. And through the American empire, and it's going to be the downfall of the American empire. It's going to liberate everybody in the world. But we want to be in advance. In other words, make sure that we have our forces together. And that's what political education does. It pulls us together to give us an understanding of why we must be liberated as a people and why we must have reparations for all the harm that has been done to us as a people.
I mean, we definitely have to have that political education, and we have to, we have to understand that in America, we've been thoroughly miseducated. The educational system is designed to miseducate you. A lot of times we think that, going to school, you're going to be real smart, and that's kind of the danger, because you can be smart, you can be intellectual, you can have a lot of information and be miseducated, and you may, that will cause you to fight side by side with your oppressor against the people who are here to liberate you. We see that all the time. It's a movie that's real insightful. It's called The Matrix, and I remember in this scene, The Matrix, character played by Lawrence Fishburne was his name, Morpheus, and he was trying to teach Neo about what the Matrix is. When the Matrix was basically just a system that was brainwashing you, that allowed you to be exploited. That's basically what the Matrix represented. And he was talking about all of the people who were connected to the Matrix. And he said, these are the people who we're trying to free, but you have to be careful, because many of them have been so indoctrinated and dependent upon this system that they will fight you to the death to protect the system. So in essence, the very people that you try to liberate can become your the biggest enemies and the biggest obstacles that you have to overcome, because they have been thoroughly indoctrinated by this miseducation system. But make no mistake, miseducation. I mean, think about it. I mean, like I said, I know a lot of people cringe when you hear the words capitalism and communism because we've been taught that, I mean, not capitalism, but socialism and communism, because we've been taught that capitalism is synonymous with freedom and democracy and all of these things. But the reality is, I mean, if you just study how the United States government operates, the United States government does not give a damn about democracy. They don't give a damn about winning the hearts and minds of people and spreading equality and justice throughout the world. They care about maintaining dominance over the whole entire planet so they can make as much profit and gain as much power and resources over the entire world. That's what capitalism is. That's what it's all about. There are examples after examples after examples of sovereign nations who have democratically elected governments that did not want to play ball with the United States. They said, you know what, instead of giving the United States access to our resources, we're going to use the resources in our own land in order to empower our own people, in order to help raise up our own people. But the United States, instead of saying, applauding and saying, you know what, good for you doing something for democracy, good for you doing something that's going to benefit your people, good for you. Instead, what they did is they led assassinations. So they led government overthrows. They overthrew democratic elected leaders and put in all type of dictators, all type of tyrants, in order so they can maintain that power domination over the country and the country's resources. This is all documented. It ain't nothing we're making up. It's well documented throughout the United States history, and they're still doing this today. It ain't about spreading democracy. It is about maintaining control over the world's resources, wealth, and power by a handful of elitist people that are hell-bent on dominating the world under this power structure in this capitalist system. And it is this in which we have to change. It is this in which we have to get rid of. If we really want to see the rise of humanity, then we got to get rid of this system that is anti-humane. And that is what capitalism is. It is an anti-humane system. And like I said, I know a lot of people hear that and they saying, man, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because capitalism is freedom. It's not. That is part of the miseducation that we have been fed here in America. And we have to properly educate ourselves in order to really free ourselves, to liberate ourselves. Because we look at it, that's why what we're doing is so important. That's why we say we have to create our own schools, our own school system. We have to get our children away from their miseducation system, because we see what it's produced. We see what it's producing. It's either failing us or it is producing the type of people who goes out and don't give a damn about our own community, and they continue to build up a nation that oppresses us and exploits us. We have to use our intelligence. We have to use our energy. We have to use all of our manpower in order to create something that is independent and work for us in our own best interest. We got to create these systems. We have to create these institutions. That's the way we're going to get liberated. That's the way we're gonna gain freedom. Freedom ain't about white people liking you. Freedom has nothing to do with whether white people like you or hate you. That is irrelevant to your freedom. Freedom. The so-called pilgrims, they created genocide. They murdered over 98% of the indigenous population. They're not even here anymore. Completely wiped them out. Why? Because they understood that land is the foundation of freedom. And if you don't have land, you can't have freedom. So we have to understand what freedom actually is. Freedom is not, just having some information. Freedom is not having white people treat you like right or being accepted by a white power structure. That's not what freedom is. That might be what you want, but if that's what you want, then you're not really wanting freedom. You want acceptance from your oppressor. That's what you're actually fighting for. But we're here in the New African Independence Movement. We're actually fighting for real freedom. We're fighting for land independence, self-determination. And we're going to create an economic system that's not about the exploitation of our fellow brothers and sisters. Because when you understand, if we gain land, if we gain independence, if we gain self-government, and we create this, and we maintain the same economic system, then we'll be in essence doing what our brothers and sisters in Liberia did. We'll be oppressing our own people. That's why we have to be. Fred Hampton Sr. said, that education is paramount. It's important because if we're not properly educated, then we'll just become the colonizers of our own people. We will get rid of white colonizers, white oppressors, white slave owners, and we will replace them with black ones. And that's not what we're interested in. That's not what we're trying to do. And if that's what you're trying to do, then you just go on over there with this European power structure and integrate with that, and be happy. But that ain't what we're about. And I'm gonna yield on that.
As a people, at a pivotal time about history, that is, that we're going to be successful in bringing in all the elements that are going to be able to run a government and run self-determination programs and all those kind of things. And we in practice we're asking people to organize wherever they are, but the objective is to get to the land so that we'll be able to have enough people that will be able to run our government properly and be able to do those things that are necessary. And there are ideological struggles that are taking place, but we know that the proper ideological struggle will lead us to be anti-capitalist in all forms. And so when we look at that and begin to understand that, then we will see it, because our people are not a part of the capitalist system. So still, even though they've done everything to disintegrate us in our communities and take our institutions down and destroy the institutions that we created, we are still not a part of that capitalist system other than being consumers. And that's not just us here in America, but throughout the world. They have made a world of consumers for capitalist products to give profit to a handful of people who are oligarchy. We don't have a democracy nowhere in these countries. We have an oligarchy, and they want to talk about Russia and the oligarchy. There's an oligarchy, which means ruled by the few. In the United States, the same oligarchy that they're talking about in Russia resembles the oligarchy that's in the United States, that's running the United States. And and let me say this: we have programs that capitalist programs that basically don't talk about liberation. We got the Griot program on a Roku TV channel that they're still talking about African Americans, and they're talking about Juneteenth, and that lady that did all that walking out of Texas to make Juneteenth a holiday, persuaded Biden to make Juneteenth a holiday, something that we was already celebrating, something we already had created, and had made it such as like an American tradition or whatever. So these are the kind of things I'm saying. We got a petty bourgeoisie, a so-called middle class, a small middle class of individuals and people and classes that are on these programs and misleading our people into thinking that we're attaining some kind of rights or some kind of within the so-called American system, and so we need to invade these programs, to give our people the information, because these people are very influential. The ones that have become wealthy in America, like Oprah, and Jay-Z and all those other people like that who have become, millionaires under to try to get our people to believe that we as a people can become successful in this system. When really, when you go back and look at their, situation, they're under control. They have no control over the mechanism which are a part, in terms of the institutions and things that they represent. And these are the kind of things that, though we talk about political education, we want to influence as many of those people as we can but we recognize that many of them are going to be enemies to to our people, and we're going to have to figure out a way to eliminate their threat to our liberation struggle.
No doubt. Definitely. Want to go to our audience, and if you're out there listening, first of all, thank you for tuning in and supporting us. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Hit this. Drop a comment. Let us know who's out there so we can converse with you properly, because this is a dialogue between people. You just fuzzed out, man. What you do? You look? Did you go into the matrix, comrade? Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I see Joe Guns out there. You go, you back now. Brother just got unplugged from the Matrix, and. But anyway, Joe Gonzalez, how you doing? Revolutionary, greetings, revolutionary comrades. How you doing? Good, always good to hear from our brother comrade. And over on NABA, checking us out on the NABA page, brother Freedom Power. How you doing, comrade? He said our people love America and become maladjusted to this social system because this social system allows our people to do whatever wicked behavior they want to do without being shamed, or fear of consequences, or fear of being confronted. So being independent is less attractive to the masses unless and until we re-educate them and demonstrate for them why it would be in our collective best interest to get out of this system and build our own sovereign nation for the sake of our future generations and for the sake of humanity. Because as we speak, the social system is rapidly breaking down, fracturing, integrating into chaos, just like its Greek and Roman predecessors. Oh man, you said a lot there, and I agree with you, comrade. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we have a misunderstanding of what freedom is. We've been miseducated on what freedom is in general. Like you said, we think freedom is being accepted by white folks, being able to marry. I can get me a white woman. What you talking about? And y'all heard nowadays white women got big booties, so hey, yay, you know what I'm saying? We think that that's what freedom is. You think that we can go out and do what we want to. That that's what freedom is, and the truth is, we just don't know what freedom actually is. We don't understand that. Hey, having the ability to govern yourself, having the ability to control your lives, having the having your own land to have a say in, this is the type of institutions we're going to create. This is the type of system we're going to run. We're not going to be based on exploitation. Those are the things that actually make up true freedom, not saying, well, you know what, white people like us. They accept us. They allow us to work right next to them in their factories. They allow us to be exploited along with them. It's the poor ones, at least. That's not what freedom is. So I appreciate your comments, brother Freedom Power, and good to hear from you. And whoever else out there, make sure you drop your comments. If there is someone else that you know about that would be interested or would benefit from this type of conversation or this type of dialogue content, then drop their name in the comments, so they can get a notification and they can join the conversation, join the family, because we need all of our collective minds, collective intelligence to work together so we can build a better world, we can liberate our people. And I see Amun Ra, how you doing? You up on checking us out on YouTube. Is that Free the Land? So I tuned in late, but hold on. I tuned in late, but what I heard was on point. Thank you, brother. Thank you so very much. We try to be on point. We try to give you that good information. He said, do you have Cash App? All right, you talk about, but yeah, I do. What is our Cash App? Let me see if I can pull up our Cash App number information. Cause we got it, but what is our Cash App? That is, boom. $ NABA Radio. NABA is in all caps, NABA. And you have radio in lowercase. So that's what it is. So hey, if y'all wanna donate to the cause, and speaking of the cause, what we try to do in NABA, and I've been trying to turn this into segment where we're soliciting donation. But since you brought up our Cash App, if you do choose to donate to us, you're not just donating to some individuals who are creating a podcast. We do things in the community. We actively work in the community to bring about institutions. Right now, the initiative that we're working on right now is we have elder, and there's a large piece of land that needs to be developed, and we're working with this elder, and we're developing land. We're growing food on the land. We're creating area in which we can bring individuals in and they can be educated. We can have survival programs on this land. We're putting a stage on the land so we can have live events on the land. We're creating areas for individuals to camp. It's called the Ivy Wells Edible Garden. That's what we're calling it right now, and that's one of the initiatives that we're working on now. We have others, but I named that one because I'm personally responsible for that one. I'm the one that laid out the design because I'm an urban gardener and a survivalist, and do other things. So yeah, but it's about 50 minutes out. We're gonna be on for about probably another 5 to 10 minutes because we got some things we got to do today. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and checking out. But yeah, that's our Cash App, Amon Rock. So hey, knock yourself out. But we've been talking about the miseducated, and really, the need to re-educate the miseducated. The uneducated is, Grandmaster Teacher always said, those are the people that really, are the ones that we get most success from because they have not necessarily been indoctrinated within the system. They just don't know. They don't know, what's actually going on. And for a lot of us, we kind of feel that something's wrong. We feel something's wrong with the world. We feel that something's going wrong with America. We feel that something's not quite right, but we just have not been educated. We have not been exposed to the information that will allow us to properly understand how the system is manipulating and exploiting us. That's where probably most of us kind of fit in. We just don't know. But usually when these people are exposed to right knowledge, to the correct information, you fall right in line to be like, oh, okay, like, dang, okay, I see what needs to be done. And that's why we have to do everything that is in our power to, not only create programs like this, but create other programs that are designed to not only meet the needs of the people, but do like the Black Panther Party did. They didn't only meet the need to the people. They created programs that educated the people. They created free breakfast programs. They found that, hey, our children are going to school hungry every day. It's hard for them to focus when you're hungry. I know because I'm kind of hungry today. I've been busy and I ain't ate nothing all day. And I'm kind of hungry right now, so it's kind of hard for me to focus. But, we're going to do what we got to do. But our children were going to school like that. And so they said, we don't need to talk about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. And let's not only talk about the solution, let's do something about it. What's feasible? What can we do? So they fed thousands of people every day, thousands of children every day before they went to school. And not only did they feed them, but they educated them. They gave them political education. They taught them about the system. They didn't say, well, we're going to leave it up to the school system to indoctrinate you. Let me give you some real education before you go to their indoctrination program. And they were successful. Like I said, every time we did something that approached true liberation, true freedom, we were viciously attacked. And you saw what they did to the Panthers. They went to all-out war, just like the war in Vietnam and any other wars. They went to war with our people. They utilized an illegal program to attack our people. That's why this effort to free our political prisoners is so important, because we got people who are locked up for 30, 40, 50 years because they were attacked by an illegal program, a program that the government has admitted was illegal, and not only lead to the destruction of a lot of families, the arrest of a lot of our people, our comrades, but it left to the murder, led to the murder of a lot of people. A lot of people died because of this illegal program. And I see Amon Ra, you said, hey, I just sent $25. It ain't over until we win. First of all, thank you, brother. Thank you so very much. You ain't have to do that. But you know what I'm saying? That's kind of, man, that's kind of how we got to do. We got to be able to put our money where our mouth is, put our intellect where our mouth is, put our energy where our mouth is, you know? And it's kind of weird because I'm never the one to be asking for money. You know what I'm saying? That's like one of the last things I do. But I understand you need finances in order to run a successful revolution. Then that's just something real. That's something I got to get out of. But you know, I do appreciate that. It warms my heart that you just did that. You know, we weren't even asking you to. So thank you, brother. Thank you. But before we get up out of here, y'all got anything y'all want to say to the people? Because it's approaching that time that we got to get up out of here. So I'm just opening the floor up. Kai.
I'm just here to make sure that we understand that we're never going to stop our calling, and that is to get the word out, to educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Don't get discouraged if your little bit of work that you're doing, when it adds up to all of the little work that we're doing all around this nation, it turns into a big movement. So let's keep it up. Let's not get discouraged. And we're going to continue to educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated.
All right, Grandmaster Teacher, got anything you want to
Okay.
with?
Liberation.
But we must keep in our minds and keep in our actions. Liberation is not about just like reading, books or things like that. But we must do research. We must do it because that's the only way we can make sure that we are on the right path. And so, consequently, I think our people are going to respond as we build up. We will see a positive response from many of our people that we are going to reach. And while we're talking to people, we're not just talking to people. We're teaching the people what are the principles of liberation, what are the principles of organization, what are the principles of building a nation, what are the principles of being involved in making sure that all these empires fall. And we know that they're going to fall of their own volition, but anytime we can put a kick in there to make them fall, we must do that.
Damn right. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not gonna say much because it is time for us to get out of here. Amon Ra, appreciate you too, brother. I appreciate you too, definitely. We appreciate you. But
we appreciate you.
But we've been talking about miseducation, and one thing that we have to do, we have to be able to humble ourselves and understand that education ain't something to stop. Period. As long as you're living, you will always be educating yourself and you will always be learning. I always say a fool is a person who think that they know everything, but they really don't. So don't be a fool, And as we continue this journey for nation building, a lot of mistakes have been made in the past that we've learned from. We still have mistakes that we're gonna make, but we have to continue to learn and we have to continue to grow. And we have to continue to build because this is a protracted struggle, and we got to be in there for the long haul. We got to be in there ready to sacrifice. We got to be ready to dedicate. What you can dedicate to the liberation of our people. What can you do? What are your skills? I can create podcasts. Because I can create podcasts, you know what? We got podcasts. That's what I can do. I can create an urban garden. So I'm gonna do that for the struggle, for the liberation. So what are your skills? What can you contribute to the building of your own nation, because for far too long we've been building up a nation that oppresses us, brutalizes us, and exploits us. So it's time to do for self and build for ourselves. My name is Brother J. Rob Marty, aka Prophecy. For my comrade Kakaye, for our elder, our grandmaster teacher, for Dolly. You know, I wanna leave us, and we're gonna get this all off. I know, because it's a lag in actually our communication, but we're gonna try to do it. We're gonna leave y'all with our battle cry. That is, free the land, free the land, by any and all means necessary, and I will. Love y'all. See y'all again next week. Check out us tomorrow on New African Perspective and all of the shows this week. But love y'all.
I fight for land, independence, and for reparations. We gotta do for self-determination.
Being independent is a very, very good thing, because it means that you don't have to be dependent, especially on people who don't like you. I mean, growing your own food, like teaching your own babies our real history, the real truth.
As a people, we are not grown unless we have independence. We are not grown as long as we living under another man's system, operating in his way of things, his laws, and his ordinances that support his rule, actually. So to me, it's not the importance of self-determination and independence. It is mandatory.